Fear is quite the enigma, wouldn't you say? I mean, as far as emotions go, that is. It's the completely natural response we feel when we witness something unnatural. For reasons I will never understand, humans have felt fear so many times that they thought it would be a good idea to recreate that feeling for fun. So, here we are in 2019 with a whole slew of methods to get that adrenaline pumping, ranging from prank videos on YouTube, to haunted houses, to the all-hailed horror movies. The horror genre is vast and contains many a moment for your fear-inducing viewing pleasure, but how do you decide which one will get the biggest reaction? My name is Matt, and with the help of Daniel and Jake, the two mini-bosses you must fight before you get to me, we came up with a list of the 10 of the scariest movie moments and why. Warning: the following moments in question, along with the themes and images used, might not be appropriate for certain audiences. Please use your own discretion. Before we get started, keep in mind that fear is about as subjective as it gets. Things that scare me are way different than the things that scare Jake. And for some reason, the only thing that affects Daniel is the irrational fear that hippos will break into his house and steal his pajamas. Yes, that is a real thing. Look it up. So instead of a normal top 10 where one entry is better than the other, we decided to break it up into different horror-related categories and pick our favorites in each. So without further ado, let's get into the list. First up, we have a category we're calling Ridiculously Scary, and for this scene, we're choosing the opening scene from the Evil Dead remake. This scene opens on a girl tied to a post, about to be burned alive by her father. You know, just usual day in suburbia. She's begging for her life, which is uncomfortable enough as it is, but then she subverts all expectations by saying this.
I just want you to hold me and take me home. Please. Please stop. I will rip your soul out, Daddy.
I'll rip your soul out!
It's scary in its own right, which is why we're including it on this list. But if you think about what's really happening here, you can't help but chuckle a little bit, and thus we've deemed it ridiculously scary. Our next category is called Bloody Horror, and the scene we're going with is the lake scene in The Descent. In this scene, Sarah wakes up after falling through a hole and sees she's surrounded by bloody body parts. She sees her friend Holly, who she just saw get killed, being eaten by a creepy monster that looks like I do if I have to wake up any time earlier than 10 o'clock. The situation she's in is terrifying already, and you really feel for her. But watching her try and escape and travel through the gore gets a little too hard to watch. There's so much blood you can practically smell it. And I promise no one here has an iron deficiency. Was that too much? Coming up next is loss of self, and to fully explain what we mean by that, it's best to just introduce the scene we picked for it. We went with the end scene from Drag Me to Hell. Christine spends the entire film battling a creepy curse and trying to find herself and her identity, only to find out at the very end that it was all for nothing and she just dies anyway. It would probably be really hard for her fiancé to watch this all go down, and it's equally hard for us to watch it as well. We watch as she gets burned down to a skeleton, literally and figuratively losing herself and her identity that she worked so hard to build. It's a scene that definitely sits with you for a bit afterwards, much like that eyeball cake. Coming in at number 7, the surprising twist ending, and we have to give it up to The Mist. The whole movie is about creepy monsters that attack some people while it's really foggy. I realize I didn't do it any justice with that description, but I promise it's worth a watch. The scene in question has our main character David and his group of survivors trapped in the thick of the mist, certain the monsters will come for them any second. They all agree to have David shoot them, including his own son. But there isn't a bullet left for himself. He falls into despair, only to see the mist start to fade away. The US military comes in to save the day, saying they already took care of the monsters. It's hard enough to watch the shooting go down, but to realize he didn't need to go that far because salvation was right around the corner, it is a harrowing realization and definitely deserves its spot on this list. Next, we have existential horror, which means the scene in question left us with the most thought-provoking kind of fear, where we question who we are. For this category, we went with the ending to Hereditary. Hereditary is a horror movie that knows you've probably seen horror movies before and has a lot of fake-outs. It has all the things that make a good horror movie premise: creepy drawings, doll houses, and dreams that don't at all predict the future of the plot. With all the build-up and context leading up to when the main character jumps out the window, you're left to wonder whether it's really him behind those bloodshot eyes or the demon of this cult his family started. Our number 5 pick goes to the good old-fashioned monster scary, and we have to give it to the horror classic, The Thing.
Clear!
Both in a physically looking scary and a metaphorical horror of not knowing who could be assimilated next. If we had to narrow John Carpenter's classic to one scene, it would most likely be the defibrillator scene. Not only does the scene truly capture the physical scariness that is The Thing, but because no one expected it to happen, it adds to the metaphorical paranoia. Fun fact, all of the practical effects in this scene were the most expensive and time-consuming shot in the entire film. Worth it. Our next category will have you on the edge of your seat. Don't you get it? Oh, right, because I didn't say The Thing. Our next category is edge of your seat horror. Huh? All right, I'll leave. This was a hard one to narrow down, but we ended up going with the opening to Jeepers Creepers. Our main characters are getting chased by a giant, terrifying truck that we come to learn is driven by the monster. There's a good amount of suspense, which is enough to land it on this spot. But it's nothing compared to the dialogue in the car before the chase. Now that is scary, am I right? Subversion scary is our next category, and the scene we're choosing is the black light scene from Lights Out. It subverts expectations because of the already established rules of this universe. If it's dark... Hold on.
Hello?
That's weird. Totally coincidental that I thought I heard someone open the door behind me, and there was nobody there, and recording something about horror movies. Where was I even? Oh, right, okay. If it's dark, the ghost is there. If there's light, the ghost is not there. Simple enough, right? But what happens if you have a black light? Oh, the ghost is there, in a very scary moment. The next one, and my personal favorite category, is ominous scary, where a movie sets up the setting and atmosphere in a way that makes you look over your shoulder. For this scene, we went with the opening to Sinister. We We watch as a family gets hung by some mysterious force with a simple but creepy audio track playing in the background. This, coupled with the same footage shown later, but with the sinister ghost in the background, makes for a very ominously scary scene. Last but not least is, of course, the classic jump scare. It's often the cheapest way to get a reaction, but you can't deny it is effective. And of all the copious amounts of jump scares to choose from, we had to pick the red-faced demon scare from Insidious.
What's happening to Renee is real. I've seen it for myself.
It might not always be fun to get scared, but it is a lot of fun to be the one doing the scaring. So you can only imagine the smug grin James Wan must have for creating this mess. It's broad daylight, the mom is giving us our daily multivitamin of exposition, and then out of freaking nowhere this thing pops up. It perfectly encapsulates the unexpected essence of a jump scare.
I can still hear that voice.
So, that's our list of the moments we found most scary. Let us know in the comments which of these moments you found the scariest, and don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Cinema Brawls. Thanks for watching.